Welcome to the Daily Shift. You heard that right. The Daily Shift. The show where we block out the noise and speak truth, train your mind, and help you become the absolute best version of yourself. Leo and Andrew are on their way. You're in the right place. And while you're here, take a breath. We're about to dive in. The show starts in 30 seconds. You ready? Take a deep breath in and breathe it out. Prepare for your shift.
There is a version of yourself that has so much confidence, has so much love in them, has so much energy to build the thing that you are called to build every single day. And then there's a version of you right now that is sitting here listening. There's a version of us that is sitting right here. And then there's a gap between the two, between us and the people and the person that we want to become. And by the end of this live and pod today, it is to help you shorten that gap, understand that gap, and figure out what we need to do in order to fill it. So we might have some camera issues today, but if we do, just ignore it. What we got, Andrew?
So you described that perfectly, and that's something I would have loved. If I was talking to my younger self, I would have loved to be able to share with my 18, 19, 20-year-old self. And I did not understand that difference. I understood if we work hard, if we do the right things, if we're honest, then somehow things will work out, which was great. And it served me at that level. Except I didn't understand how to become the person who could step into, whether it be the impact, the financial freedom, the time freedom, and actually live the life I want to fulfill the mission that I felt I was supposed to serve. And so as you make that so clear and simplify it really in a way that we can actually put it into actionables and begin becoming that person today, I think it's a gift. And so you'll want to, if you're not driving, you want to have your pens and your papers and get ready to take a few notes, because this is going to be a transformative session today.
So we understand who that person is when we visualize, when we close our eyes and imagine that person 2 years from now. It could be 2, it could be 3, it could be 5, it could be 10 years from now. That person who who is living the life that you want to live, living the dream that you want to live. And what we have to ask ourselves is, who is that person and what are they doing that I'm not doing? And that simply becomes the awareness of the gap.
Yeah.
Now, this is the prerequisite of this live as we're going through it, is understanding what that gap is. Of course, in previous lives, we've walked you guys through a guided visualization. We've taught you guys how to visualize, but I am going to sit here and assume that you guys have an understanding that there is in existence a future version of yourself that is a higher self,
Yeah.
that has done the work, that has done the deep work, that has worked out every day. So we're going to go through these 5 points. I just want you to take notes on them and type it in the chat as always. And of course, implement this today. So number 1, type it in the chat, is the invisible pain of the gap. It sounds kind of crazy after I read it out loud, but just type in the chat. The invisible pain of the gap. Now, what this means is not what it sounds like, but it's essentially this restlessness of like, I need to get there. I need to get to that future version of myself. I want to get there now.
Yeah.
But feeling that pain of like, I'm not that person yet, or I don't have the habits yet. I don't have the discipline yet. I don't have the willingness yet to get there.
So first off, back in doing the prison ministry years ago, I remember I would be writing, or I would stop at a coffee shop right before I got to the prison service, and I would write out all these notes, and man, it was flowing on the paper. It sounded brilliant. And then I would get up. Sometimes I read them out loud, and they didn't sound like they looked when I wrote them. So what I thought of when you said the invisible pain of the gap, and you started to describe that restlessness,
Right.
is number one, that, but number two is it makes so much sense because every one of us have or are living there. And we live in that place where I remember sitting there at times going like, and forgive me if this sounds egotistical, I don't mean it that way. I would sit there though at times, and I've seen other people do this, and I would look at someone who maybe wasn't quite as integrous or as bright as I might believe myself to be. And I would see them making more money than me. And that would, as we used to say, that would irk me. What am I doing wrong? Like, I'm doing all the right things. I'm treating people right. Why is this happening? And it began to breed frustration because I'm going, like, the mission is there. I know I'm supposed to be helping more people. I know I'm supposed to be impacting more. But why am I stuck in this little loop? And so as you described that, that's exactly where my mind went. And I think when we begin to realize, and this, you called me out, when we became friends, when we became brothers, you would consistently call me out, not only on the words I say, on the way I would say them. If I would say something that sounded in any way different than you believed was the person I was working to become, right, you would call me out on it. And so that's something we must do for ourselves in that restlessness, in the uncomfortable place, is begin to level up.
The main essence of this topic here is to help you guys realize that there is certain actions that you're doing that is of your current self, and there is certain actions that your future self is doing, the greater version of yourself is doing. And if we simply start to understand that we can start implementing those things now, we can start to bring that version of ourselves closer. It's called closing the identity gap. And I think I just want to flow today and go off of my notes, because on a side note, I realize that if anything's off with the notes, it completely throws everything else off. But for you, Andrew, you're an anomaly. You were already successful, but you had a lot of insecurity in other ways. Yeah. When I had you do the visualization, it's called the coffee shop method, where you close your eyes and you visualize your future self. That person was 40 pounds lighter. That person was more confident. That person was a lot more socially acute and talked to people with ease. That person was more successful, not just in money, but also in your vitality, in your presence, in your aura.
And he was more handsome and had a beard.
There you go. So now, when you were at that point years ago,
Yeah.
you understood that there was a version of yourself there.
Right.
And you also saw the gap.
Yeah.
How did you feel when you visualized that version of yourself?
Two ways. First, it was exciting to me to think about being that person. Secondly, because of insecurity, a little bit of fear. Can I really become this person? That's very uncomfortable. Like, I can't see myself being that charismatic. And when you are who you are, you see yourself in the mirror every day. And if you view yourself a certain way, it can be very difficult to then view yourself as that future, more fit version, happier, more handsome, more attractive, not just in looks, but in charisma and personality. And something that was a gift you gave me, Leo, was every time I doubted myself, in some way, you would either inspire me in an action, encourage me with a word, or push me with accountability. And those three things, every time I doubted myself, like, can I really become that next level of the person that I want to be? Can I really become that 2 or 3 or 5 year person that I'm seeing sitting in the coffee shop with dressed up nicely, knowing he has the life that I was then dreaming of? Every time I would doubt that, I had a reinforcement from a brother who would empower, and you being able to empower me to know I can do that next level. So the self-doubt was constantly outweighed by our brotherhood and by your inspiration. And this is why, to me, it's such a powerful thing. Like, I told somebody a little while back, they said, what's the number one thing that you believe makes someone successful above all else? Well, I think it's personal growth. Well, I think it's understanding. I think it's being around people who push you, if you're ready for that push. Because if it hadn't have been for that, I don't know if I would have ever been able to make that leap.
Okay, I like that. I would partially agree. I like to believe that we can do it on our own. Thinking about my own journey, I had other people around me way later, though.
Yeah.
But I did spend a big series of time by myself.
Same.
Having built it up, and then it was multiplied by other people. So some of you guys listening now are in a position where either you are alone and you're the only one doing personal development, and you're in that season, or some of you guys have other people around you, but they pull you back, or you might be in a different scenario where you've already broken through. You're already in that level of growth where you have good people around you and you're developing every day.
Yeah.
This is where we want to get everyone, right? Sometimes we do our show and it is for those who are already growing, who are already on that path, and we're going to continue growing it and get to a higher level. Sometimes our show is for someone who is a aspiring entrepreneur or a new entrepreneur that still hasn't broken through fully the belief in themselves to build something great.
Yeah.
Because everyone on here has full capability. If for a week, let's say a month, if for a month you spent a month with us and you did not doubt yourself because we didn't let you did not get frustrated because we didn't let you, and you did not say negative things about yourself, in those 30 days, you will have gotten so much more done. You will have felt so much more peace and felt so much more ahead and so much more like that future version of yourself that you could have ever imagined.
Well, we see it anytime we do it one day with one of our mastermind members at the house here. We see them immediately in that 8 hours have a massive breakthrough because of that, what you just described. And I think that's a powerful thing. And while I would like to also think we can do it alone, I ran in some senses alone for a period of time. I think in that season, I was able to accomplish certain levels of success on the external, but the internal still had to have the work. And so when you tied my external successes to the need for my internal transformation, it made sense for me. Every one of you listening to this, you're really freaking good at something. And if you can start to tie the thing you want to be, the person, the man, the woman you want to become, to the aspect you've had success in, you go, oh, of course I'm disciplined. If I can be disciplined to do sales calls for 12 hours a day, surely I can skip eating freaking bread and go to the gym for 15 minutes, right? So if we start to then relate the thing, you go, well, gosh, if I'm committed and I'm a dedicated person who is a great mom to my kids, or a great son or daughter or brother or husband or wife, if I'm dedicated in this aspect, surely I can take that commitment and apply it to this level that I need the transformation in.
So let's do this, Andrew. Let's give a framework for how to do this, but let's do it in a building in the moment type of process for somebody. Because my belief is, and we've seen it so many times with students, is that if you can visualize, get yourself either in a guided visualization, have someone like myself guide you through that, or you guide yourself through a visualization to see someone that is at least 2 years from now. And you visualize who that person is, what that person looks like in the gym, how that person responds emotionally, how that person stands up and speaks with the confidence, the person's self-security levels, self-love levels, etc. And when you see that person, now it's up to you every day to remind yourself who that person is. Yeah. That's why vision boards work really well. And that's why visualization, mental rehearsal works really well, because you get yourself back in the state of, I could be that person. And after that, it's simply asking yourself the question, what would that person do? What would that person say yes to? What would that person say no to? What would that person stop chasing? And what would that person do today? Those 4 questions will give you a list of things today to do. And if you just today did those things, and then as you do those things, affirm yourself that, hey, this is why I'm becoming confident, then it will train your brain, rewire your brain to think in that capacity. Now, that sentence, or those few sentences, is what the game is, but of course it takes some time for someone to understand that. So I want to break it down in a more conceptualized way.
So how do we simplify that in that way you're talking? Because I think about this, you started personal development, 10 years ago? 8 or 10 years ago, probably.
Yes.
I went through years of grinding and hustling in the business, and then about 5 years ago when we connected, I started transforming. How do we break that down in a framework where somebody could get a major breakthrough like by the end of the show today?
I think if you can get yourself in a calm state, in an empowered state, right? Your state is controlled by your physiology, the way you stand, the way you sit, and the way you breathe. For example, if you're however you're sitting right now, maybe you're on your bed, maybe you're laying down, maybe you're slouched over. I promise you, if you sit up straight, sit up proud, and you breathe like you're proud, your state will change. Yeah. So that's the first thing. If you want to go above and beyond, start moving around, start jumping around. Yeah. Right? With us, if we start doing some jumping jacks, doing some push-ups, like we're in a different energy, we're in a different state. Immediately. So that is the first step, is change your state by changing your physiology. The next thing is breath work. Yep. Right? God gave us the tool of breathing and the tool to regulate our nervous system with our breath. So the style that I do is a box breath, which is simply breathing in for 4 seconds, holding it for 4 seconds, breathing it out for 4 seconds, holding it for 4 seconds, and doing that twice. So that's the second thing. I just want you guys to take notes on this, and this also helps my brain for us to later create frameworks. So number 1, change your state. Number 2 is breath work. Yeah. Breath work, there's thousands of different types of breath work. You could just simply breathe in and out for 20 seconds, or you could do box breathing, whatever you want to do. I do box breathing. You do that 2 or 3 times, but the key is to feel tension in your body, release. The way we do that is be aware of the tension that's in your jaw, the tension that's in your forehead, the tension that's in your shoulders, and watch it release. Once you do that, then you visualize. You close your eyes and you guide yourself through. What I'll do is I'll close my eyes and I'll just ask myself a question. 2 years from now, what do I look like? and I'll start to actually see that person and feel what it feels like to be around this person. And sometimes I could see it in first person of like, what does it feel like? What do my hands look like? What does the mirror look? All these different things. If you can't do that yet, visualize somebody else. Visualize someone that you look up to who has the things that you want, the not necessarily the material. This is not what it's about.
Right.
It's about the feeling, the confidence, the energy, the poise that this person has.
Charisma, the peace, the
Absolutely.
kindness.
Because those are things that anyone can train on. Those are controllable.
So true.
So you imagine those things. Once you do that, you simply ask yourself then the question in the moment, or I guess in the morning, if you're doing this in the morning, what would that person do today? And then you write it down. Then you do that thing.
Yeah.
And once you do that thing, it's like a repetition. It's like you just went to the gym, right? But we did the thing that our future self would do. And then here's the final piece. It is to reaffirm. Type in the chat, reaffirm. So when you do this, it's a habit. And it sounds like a lot for a lot of people. And I know it is. And I know only probably 10% of people will do it. 5% of people will do it. But those who do it will change their life.
Well, what you're sharing is so powerful in a framework way. You're listening to this, and if you think about your life, you've probably pretty much implemented this framework somewhere. Whether it be that you have an opportunity, you jumped into it, you said yes. Whether it was you had a connection with someone, whether you went on a last minute trip without planning, there's a place where you said, hey, I'm going to just take the action. I'm just going to do the thing. I wasn't a world traveler yesterday, but I booked an international flight. I now am. And you made the action, and you immediately had a change. And if we can take that same success that you've had in an aspect and make it make sense in the aspect you want to change, that is a way for rapid transformation. What Leo described there is before I understood, it was a framework. So I didn't do it systematically. I didn't understand, so I'd done it in the most difficult way possible. But the successes I had was because I said, I'm so broke, I don't want to be broke no more. I'm going to do sales calls until somebody says yes. I don't know how to build a business. I never have done it before, except I was 21 and I had a cell phone and I started calling people. And as you're stepping into that, before long, people were saying, well, you're really good at closing calls. And I'm like, I don't know that I'm good at closing calls. I was broke and I had to make money. And if you start to step into that, you can now do it systematically, not stressfully like I did. Not out of desperation, but systematically, and say, hey, I want to be more fit. I'm going to picture the fit future person and take the actions they would take. I want to make more money. So I'm going to picture that future, more financially successful person and do the actions they would do. When you can step into that, that is like a cheat code at life. And I think you described that very well.
I think what you're saying is a lot of people accidentally do this.
Yes.
They'll accidentally do it out of desperation. And if they get lucky, they get to a point where eventually they go through the identity change.
Right.
Which really just means they decided to be that person today.
Yep.
Right? Because eventually somebody decides to be charismatic. Sometimes we don't know right away that we decided, but you started learning how to speak to people. And then one point you're like, you know what, this feels better than what it did before.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be more charismatic. Now, the point is, there's a way to take it from 5 years to 3 months. And this is what we're talking about here. But where I was going was reaffirming the way to do that is everything that you do that is in the light of your future self, you reaffirm yourself. This is self-talk. This is telling yourself, hey, this is why I'm becoming more successful. This is why I'm confident, because I visualize. This is why I'm confident. You drank enough water. This is why I'm confident. You went to the gym. This is why I'm confident. And every hour of the day, you do that for yourself. And this is just how you lower that gap from 6 months, 2 years to 30 days. And I don't really know how else to explain it in a more simplified way. It's just about doing that now. And that's our biggest wish and prayer for people, is that if you want to change your life, that is the way to change your life.
I think that is a powerful thing, and building on that, again, framework that you just described is what we can now do systematically to what I used to do as a reaction to pressure. And where I didn't have pressure in my life, I wouldn't make a change. So if I had financial pressure like I did at 21, I said, I have to get good at this thing. So I would just do it. But if I didn't have a pressure that was requiring me to get more fit, at the rate I was going, it would have been probably years until I had health challenges that I would have decided to fix my health, right? So I just wasn't being aware and deciding to be proactive. I instead was deciding to react to pressure points in my life. I think so many people live in that way. It's reactive mode. Oh, I got a health challenge. Let me eat healthier. Oh, I've got a financial challenge. Let me try to go make more money. Rather than being proactive and say, hey, things are good right now. Thank you, God. Where can I put the focus to become more healthy, more fit, more mindful, more peaceful, building the life I want, invest better, build the side business, become the great person at sales calls, or the items that take you closer to your end goal. And with you, what you just described and visualizing that future self puts you in a place of mindfulness that gives you the ability to become proactive. And this is where you can design the life you want in accordance with building the ultimate kingdom, in accordance with living the life that you are meant to live, not in accordance with hopefully there's enough money to pay the bills next month, or hopefully I get healthy enough to be able to survive.
I think about all the time of pain and pleasure where it goes a certain way. I want to make sure I get it right, but from my belief is the pleasure of changing has to be greater than the pain of staying the same. But then when I say it out loud, it's like it's either or. You have to realize that the pain of staying the same is so high that you change. It's got to be one of the two. It's either that the pleasure of changing, of becoming that person is so high, or the pain of staying the same is so high. But how do we get there? Either a big life change happens, God forbid, you get in an accident, you go broke, bankrupt, you lose a family member, you have a health issue, something happens in your life that makes you say, I gotta change. And then that pain of staying the same is so high that you make yourself change. Otherwise, humans don't move if we don't have to. Like we do not. I didn't for so long. You get comfortable. And we stay in the same place. But we know that we want to change. We know that we want to grow. We know we want to get in a better financial situation, not just to have more money, but to have more freedom, to have more peace, to have stronger character, have more respect, etc. So how we can get ourselves there sooner is you imagine yourself 80 years from now, 90 years from now, when you're 100 years old, on your deathbed, you imagine what it feels like if you had made that change. If in this moment you had made the change, what would your life look like on your deathbed? And you imagine who's there. You imagine them reading your, what is that called?
Your
obituary?
Yeah, your obituary.
You imagine them reading your obituary, how many people you impacted, how many people showed up to your celebration of life. And you actually go through the same visualization of that. And you feel the happiness there. Okay? That's if you do change. And then you visualize if you never changed. If you never took the action. You're 100 on your deathbed, 17 people show up, they're reading your obituary, you lived an average, boring life. How would you feel? I remember doing that, and that's what got me to spring into action, because I wanted to make sure that I lived that type of life. And I had more pleasure of change than pain of staying the same. Or I guess the pain of staying the same was also high.
Well, here's something that's interesting, and I want to ask you, how at such a young age did you begin to realize or become aware? Let me rephrase the question. So for me, when I was in ICU at 21, that's when life hit me like, wait a second, there's a clock that's ticking. We don't know how long we have. And that caused me to change strategy, but still yet I wasn't as aware as I now am, as I would have liked to have been. in terms of the opportunities that are there and how to become the man I wanted to be. So how did you develop that awareness? I know you've been through plenty of things in life that you'll share on the daily shift eventually, I'm sure. But at such a young age, many people have to go through tough things in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Some people never have that reality check. And how did you adapt that awareness so early?
I think I always had a fear of death. I remember before I started studying, before I became more aligned, I would think that when you die, it's just a black screen and nothing else happens. And I was so scared of that. And I remember every time I thought about death, like I would spring into action. I would do something that like made me feel alive because I was so scared of it. So I remember that as a kid, like always feeling that way. And then I remember feeling like I wanted to create something. I didn't want to live an average life, a boring life. I don't know why. It was always just like innately an idea of like, let's live a great life.
Yeah.
I don't want to, I think also because I thought that death was just like that, like I'm not going to waste this 100 years that I got. So that's when I started to think about all the things that would be awesome to do. Like, how many people can I help? How many experiences can I have? How many countries can I travel to? So as a really young person, I would look up, how do I make money? Because I knew I needed to make money to go do those things. And through that journey of like taking control of the destiny in that age, I learned about personal development. I learned about visualization very early on. And I learned how to remove the doubts, the self-doubts really early, because I read something when I was like 15 that the one thing that's going to kill you, the one thing that's going to hold you back from a great life is doubt.
Wow.
The sooner you can get rid of doubt, the sooner you're going to win.
That's a rider downer. The sooner you can get rid of doubt, the sooner you're going to win.
So I studied for like 4 years of how to remove doubt. And I remember every year I would go back to my journal and like look at my thoughts that I would have throughout the years, and slowly removed until now I don't have any doubts. I don't have any innate doubts that are built in. Every now and then a seed will come up, but I'll take it and throw it away. But that's what has now given me the ability to teach this and to move and to do the things I'm doing, because I removed doubt early.
Yeah. That's powerful. So if you were, I guess, redoing how would you turn that removing doubt into a duplicatable framework? And I ask that because if some people on here, like me, struggled for so many years, you'd have a win and you're excited and you're like, I got this. Like, we're heading in the right direction. And then something goes wrong, and immediately you're like, oh, maybe I wasn't cut out for this. Like, is this ever going to work for me? Maybe I should have just stuck with the last thing. Is this even going to be, like, why do I feel like I take 2 steps forward and 4 backwards? And so then we have those cycles that I lived in for years. So how do you turn that, what you've learned in the last years of removing doubt in your life, into a framework for any listeners who want to remove it more rapidly?
So what you said right there, of course, you don't say those things anymore, right? You don't say, oh, I'm so behind. I feel like I'm in a loop. Because everything we say has strength behind it.
Right.
If you ever hear me say, I feel like I'm just in a loop, like you look at me like, what are you saying? Right? Because I'm choosing to identify with the fact that I'm in a loop right now. Like I'm saying I am in a loop. And I'm accepting that fact.
Wow.
So realizing how powerful your words are is the first step. Self-talk, the way you speak to yourself. Now, awareness is the number one step, but we can do this by taking your phone out when you're having a little fit with yourself, like I used to have, where I would say all these negative things. Catch yourself in that moment and do a silly thing and take your phone out and record yourself out loud, but speak it out loud.
And when you start saying this stuff out loud that you say to yourself in quietness, sounds pretty freaking bad.
It is disgusting. It is absolutely disgusting the way that we talk to ourselves. And when you catch it for the first time, you can say, hey, do you fucking hear yourself of how you speak to yourself? And I remember I feel that because I did that for the first time and I was so angry at myself for speaking at myself that way. So I stopped.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. It's just awareness of the way we speak to ourselves. And then because let's just say you stopped.
Yeah.
You stop saying such negative things. They'll come up every now and then, but now there's gaps. There's holes in the way you speak. So what do we fill those with? We fill those with either neutral or positive ideas that at least get us in a positive state of mind.
Yeah.
And it's not this airy-fairy, think positive, think positive. It's just getting rid of the negative, because the negative has a bigger effect on you, a more pull. The negative is the thing that holds you back.
Yeah.
Positive, of course, it will lift you up, or it'll keep you at least not down.
Right.
So we have to get rid of the negative first. That's the only reason for positive thinking, in my opinion.
That's such a powerful explanation of that. And I think for each of you watching this, you're stepping into the next levels of your business. You know, when we come into realization there's so much more available, that's where frustration comes from. Because we want to do better, but sometimes we feel like we're missing the roadmap to get there. Anybody ever felt that way? You've probably felt that way before. You're like, I know there's this mission, I know this is the result, but like I'm missing the fill in the blanks between here and there.
100%.
And so as you shift from, and that is the fill in the blanks, as you shift from constant doubt and worry and fear to constant trust, knowing, and faith, like that bridges that gap to now you can move with certainty. You can move with surety. You can say, I know I'm meant for greater things. I don't know always how it will come, but I know it always will. And because you know that, now you're putting your faith to work by doing the actions that person would do. So I look at someone who is in the financial position, the mental position, the spiritual position that I want to be in, and I do something somewhat similar to what they're doing to hopefully get a similar outcome. Mm-hmm. And if I do a similar action to someone else with similar desire and similar strength, I'm likely to get a similar outcome. And so if I can improve my odds of winning, and I can improve my odds of being at peace, and I can improve my odds of fulfilling my mission, then I'm going to be moving consistently in that direction. And when you start to think in that way, it is a constant habit change from the old way of thinking, the old way of doubt, the old person who would say, we can't afford that, to the new person who says, how do we afford that? You know, what can we do? What can we buy? What can we invest in? What can we grow? And as we step into that new person who is powerful, who is confident, who is grateful, who is sincere, your whole life begins to open up in a way that the old person would have never been ready for nor attracted.
I was thinking of this idea of faking it till you make it, and how it has different connotations to it, different ideas, different beliefs to it.
Yeah.
But so about 5 years ago when I first started, I learned to fake it till you make it, and I took it literally.
Yeah.
And every part of me I remember going to LA. I was living in San Francisco, and born and raised out there, and I didn't have a lot of money, but I had this hunger to grow. And every time I would go to LA, it would be like a huge trip, right? Huge trip to Los Angeles. And I would go there, I would dress differently. I would just, I'd be confident. I'd be this new self, because I learned about how to fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
And what that did for me is it taught me how to position myself, how to have the poise of someone who is confident. And it was very uncomfortable when I did it at home, because everyone knew me and everyone would be like, what are you doing?
Wow.
Like, why are you trying to be someone different? But when I would go to Los Angeles, nobody knew me. And
be whoever you want to be.
I could be whoever I wanted to be.
Wow.
So all of a sudden, I would walk around and talk to people, and they wouldn't freak out, or they wouldn't say, who are you?
Yeah.
They would simply talk to me. So I started to realize that, hey, new people who don't know who I am accept this confident version of me.
Wow.
Why can't I just be this way? So it took me to do that, to fake it till quote unquote, just fake it. And then I brought that back home. And luckily, that was during COVID, where I went back home to nobody. So all I did was I spent that time with myself being this new person. And I built the habits of thinking of that confident person. And that's how I built my confidence so fast.
Wow. That's a big moment because our old identity is so attached, the person we were, to the people who knew us. And many people from your old life, many people who perhaps don't think as highly as you know the vision in your heart is to go, will on accident or on purpose or for whatever reason hold you back. And when you can step into that power and disconnect from the things that hold you back, it will open up a world of opportunity that you never otherwise could have dreamed of. So what a powerful thing, and very well described.
So I guess to wrap it up, let's do a simple framework that everyone can follow today, and it's the same framework that we talked about this morning on our call. It is number one is to breathe. Type in the chat. Number one is to breathe. Get yourself in a calm state where you're breathing in and out, whether it's the box breathing, 4x4, or any type of breathing you want to do. Number two is to visualize. Either you have a vision board, something that you can look at every single morning. You've created a vision board. Or number two, you close your eyes and you visualize a successful day or someone 2 years from now or someone at least a little bit in the future.
Yeah.
Or you can have both. Number three, it is to choose. Or take that back. Number three is to align, which means you ask yourself the question, what would that person do today? What would that person say yes to, and what would that person say no to? That will give you a list of like 1 to 3 things. And then number four is to move. You move on that action. You take that action. Maybe you say the person would work out today, and the person would say no to junk food, and the person would say yes to the opportunity that you got last Tuesday. And you do those things. And number five is you reaffirm yourself. So in the moment when you went to work out, or in the moment when you skip the junk food, you tell yourself in the moment, this is why I'm becoming more and more confident. And when I say reaffirm, it also means when you say something negative or say something that doesn't align with that future version of yourself, you catch yourself and you say, hey, that's not how we talk. And you try again. And this has become the framework that I'm seeing is working so often. And everything we just said, scrunched down into those 5 steps. If you do every single day, your life will absolutely change in the next 30 days.
That's a powerful takeaway. If you guys can implement what Leo just shared and the segments from this show, from the Daily Shift, your life will transform in a much bigger way than you can fathom. And you can then become that person. You ever been close to that person and you see them, and 3 years later you see them and you're like, oh my gosh, like how did they look different, they act different, they talk different, they're transformed. You see them and you say, oh my gosh, their financial situation has changed so rapidly. It's because they followed in some form, knowingly or unknowingly, the framework like we're talking about today. So this is our gift to you today. You're going to want to go back, rewatch this, share it with a friend, and continue to implement these things. And as you are becoming the person, and I think it is a becoming, because sometimes we get caught up in the when we become or when we get there, and it really is more about every single day becoming more of that person.
Absolutely. Well, we will be back here tomorrow, same time, same place. We've got a big topic for you guys. Continue showing up, because those who are here, we see you guys and we see the amount of growth you've been having, and it really is a place to be consistent, a mental gym every single day for you to show up, learn these things, take action on it the day of, and grow into this incredible, incredible, incredible version of yourself that you are all becoming.
We're building your mind muscle.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. We will see you tomorrow again, same time, same place.
Bye for now, guys.
Bye-bye. Peace.